In this video, you will learn how to make dandan noodle without soup variation in approximately 8 minutes. I'd like to tell you that this recipe is basically the professional level, and also I'd like to mention that this dandan noodle without soup variation is basically a big booming food in Tokyo, Japan. So today's recipe is basically the Tokyo style. The actual cooking step is nothing difficult, but getting all the required items, ingredients and seasonings and the spices, those can be challenging to you. First, let's look at the ingredients required. It's minced pork and Chinese noodles. Currently, they're using the thick Chinese noodle as popular trend in Tokyo. And the green onions and the garlics and chili peppers and egg. So ingredients required for this recipe is nothing special, except that for the Chinese noodles maybe. If your local area doesn't have any Asian shops in where those require the spices and seasonings or salt, probably you can't try this recipe. But if you have one of those shops, please try it, because this recipe is absolutely delicious. If the place sells some Chinese seasonings and oils, probably you can also find the Sichuan peppers, Japanese peppers, doubanjiang and tianmianjiang, and the Chinese soup base easily. Anyway, so let's get back talking about the cooking steps. Now the 2 cloves of the garlic to be chopped. And put into the pan and stir frying it for a while. One point advice would be you don't want to make it brown. And while you're stir frying the minced pork and the garlic, you should also prepare the soups for the simmering. And in this video, I'm using the Chinese broth base, the pork base by the way. And when you use the Chinese broth base, please check that the saltiness of the soup. This time adding mirin and sake. If you are familiar with the mirin, basically the mirin is a sweet sake, and it contains a certain amount of sugar, and it will add the sweetness. And I usually prefer using mirin rather than using sugar. Since this time's recipe will use shoyu, and if you use shoyu, whatever it is, basically mirin and shoyu and sake, the combination of those three is basically a surefire combination. Now you can add 1 tablespoon of the doubanjiang. This is basically the combination of the miso and chili pepper in Chinese way. So the doubanjiang will also have some amount of salt. So you need to know this for calculating the total balance of the saltiness in the end. At the same timing, you should also add the tianmianjiang on 1 tablespoon. Tianmianjiang is Chinese version of the sweet miso type of seasoning. So basically using minced pork with garlic and tianmianjiang and doubanjiang is a very common combination in Chinese cooking by the way. And now you can simmer it further. While you're simmering it, you can add Sichuan pepper, this much. And for your information, this Sichuan pepper is the key item for today because it determines the taste to be the Chinese. It can be optional, but I also added Japanese pepper. By the way, this is called a Japanese pepper in English language, but in Japanese it's called a Sansho, and it's basically one of the pepper commonly used in Asian. Now the chili peppers are also added. So basically many peppers are used in this recipe. And once those simmering soups are evaporated like this, then you can stop the fire. At this point, I highly recommend to taste it once. It will make you know that how much shoyu you should use later. Now on the left side of the screen, I'm preparing some corianders. If you want to have stronger Asian-like taste, then you can use coriander. And also preparing the green onions. You should chop that 30 gram or so maybe to be chopped. Now boiling the Chinese noodle. In this video, I'm using the raw fresh quality of the Chinese noodles. And if it's available, I highly recommend it. Once it's boiled, then please use a strainer. wash the noodles with water. At this point, please cool down the temperature of the noodles. So now the cooking is almost done. Please prepare the plates. And now the scallion oil will be used. The scallion oil is often used in Chinese and also some of the ramen shop. In Japan, definitely also using this scallion oil. And also pour in some amount of shoyu. This amount of shoyu used should be determined by the saltiness of the minced pork sauce you made. They also add in the chili oil here, just only a little bit. And now here's the topping. First the noodles and sauce. And the yolk of the egg. And coriander, just a little bit will be good enough. And the green onions as a flesh taste layer. And using this niboshi powder is definitely optional, and adding furthermore of the chili oils, and it's finished. And the cooking is finished. So how to eat is very simple. Mixing it well and then you can eat it. So if you can find all the required items introduced in this video, please try it once, it's very delicious. So thank you for watching.